for you. First of all, Jordan's Royal Court tells us that airspace here is not closed. Repeat, not closed, despite reports to the contrary. And CNN's producer Dan Fernand is out at the border, that's Jordan's border with Iraq, and he reports to us that a town there called Traibil was hit by a bomb at some point during the night. Now, the town is in a border area between Iraq and Jordan in what is apparently considered to be a neutral zone, although the town technically may be Jordanian territory. And we've had no word yet from the Royal Court here on what that could mean or what the implications of that may be. Susan?
Margaret, can you expand on that a little bit? When you say that the court has said that the airspace is not closed, give us some details what that means.
Well, it means that it is not closed. There were reports earlier in the night, I guess after the bombing started, that Jordanian airspace had closed. As you know, Jordan is between Iraq and Israel and is determined to remain neutral as long as it can. And there were fears that it had perhaps closed its airspace during the fighting, but the Royal Court tells us now that that is not true.
All right, the latest from CNN's Margaret Lowry in Amman, Jordan. Patrick.
As you well know, there's been some anti-war protesting on both sides of the Atlantic, and there is also some on the Pacific shores. And for the very latest on that, let's check in live with CNN's Ann McDermott, who is live right now at a protest in Los Angeles. Ann?
Well, you can probably hear a lot of noise behind me, a lot of shouting. There's drum beats, there was singing, and a little while ago you could barely hear yourself, hear anyone talk over the horns honking. People here who are against the war have been asking people to support them by sounding off, and they have. Next to me is a rare counter-protester, and the crowd is trying to hush him. But for the most part, these are people that are against the war. Earlier this morning, even before the hostilities broke out, nearly 160 people were arrested in Los Angeles. They were trying to block entrances to the federal building. This is also a federal building where we are on Wilshire Boulevard. People here tried to block intersections earlier today. The police stopped them. Police stopped them, but these people, some are still trying. Some here say they are going to continue their vigil through the night. The crowds have thinned a little bit, but there have been at least a couple of thousand people here. Up in San Francisco, there were also demonstrations. People paraded through the streets and settled down for an overnight candlelight vigil. Also, people demonstrated in Washington and in New York. They gathered outside the United Nations building. Again, the protest here is going on strong in Los Angeles. I'm Ann McDermott, CNN, reporting live in Los Angeles.
We take you now back to Baghdad. What is the latest there?
Susan, some interesting news. One of the big questions we have had during all of our coverage since the bombing began was, where is Saddam Hussein? CNN's satellite maven and chief engineer Nick Robertson has been at the Iraqi television headquarters, our feed point, for the past 2 hours, and he has seen Saddam Hussein. Nick, I know you were there to attempt to get these pictures that we took overnight out to the rest of the world. Tell us first of all about who you saw there, the names in the news in Iraq today.
Initially, I met Minister Jazem. After that, I went to sit at the feed point. We were unable to feed for lack of communications. While I was waiting at the feed point, President Saddam Hussein walked by on his way, I believe, to record a message either to American people or to the people of Iraq.
Yeah. Guess with me, Nick, how long ago it was when you saw President Saddam Hussein come into the TV station?
It would be within the last hour. It would probably approximately be 9 a.m. local time. That's 6 a.m. GMT when I saw him.
Yeah, and the Information Minister Jazem was there with him, I suppose, and were they talking together?
Jazem I saw separately at an earlier point, approximately 8:30 local time.
Okay, and the reason that our viewers can't see these pictures is because I guess the telephones don't work at Iraqi TV, or they can't get the pictures and sounds out to the satellite.
There's no attempt, to my knowledge, being made to feed at this point in time, and the reason for that being, I believe, a lack of communications to Amman, Jordan, as the next step in our feed process from here. I believe they're trying to make contact with Amman, Jordan. I was left very much in the dark with no information.
Yeah, well, of course, our viewers are in the dark as well, because I'm looking at what could be as much as 90 minutes of terrific videotape of last night's attack, which is here in my hands rather than on your TV sets at home. And we apologize for the problems we're having with Iraqi television getting this material to you. I'm sure they're trying to do what they can to get the pictures out, but You got to have telephones to make contact before you turn on a multi-100-watt satellite transmission to the outside world. Nick Robertson, we're very glad to have you back safe and sound, because as you know, anytime anybody leaves this hotel and goes to a sensitive location like the TV station, there's potential for trouble. So, to our colleagues in Atlanta, we're very glad to have Nick home safe and sound. And we'll be back to you with another updated report, but now we know at least that President Saddam Hussein, who we heard might be making a television address a couple of hours ago, has just arrived to record that address. So it might still be available to us, perhaps even live sometime in the next few hours, if Iraqi television can send it out. So we'll stay in touch. John Holloman, CNN Live in Baghdad.
John, just to reiterate, can you please clarify, Saddam Hussein was actually seen this morning, it is now 10 a.m. in Baghdad, in person?
That's right. Our man Nick Robertson just told you, Susan, he was at the television station 1 hour ago when Saddam Hussein walked in. Did the President acknowledge you were there, Nick? Did you wave at him? Did he wave back or anything?
The President did not see me. I kept myself very much inconspicuous.
Sometimes the best policy in these matters. But Susan, yes, our man, CNN's Nick Robertson, has seen the President of Iraq in the past 60 minutes at the TV station, so we know where he is.
Nick, what can you tell us about how Saddam Hussein looked? Did he look tired? Did he look tense? Did he look angry? Did he look frustrated? What can you tell us, perhaps speculate about the psychological strain on the man?
Very hard to say indeed. I would probably not describe him with any of the words that you used there. Maybe resolute, and maybe there was a determination in his step, and the people with him were walking a pace to keep up with him.
I'm sure the viewers all over the world are very, very interested in your sighting of President Saddam Hussein, because you may be the only Westerner who has seen him in the past 2 or 3 days, Nick. Susan, if you have more questions, we're here.
Thank you very much, John. Right now, we are going back to Patrick Greenlaw, but thank you to you and all of our colleagues in CNN Baghdad. Patrick.
Obviously, a tremendous amount of developments in the past 8 hours since the initial invasion. CNN's Mark Leff has this report on the chronology of how things happened.
First word from 2 of the 4 countries whose planes were involved in the overnight attack on Iraq and Kuwait is that all aircraft and their crews have returned to their bases unharmed after destroying much of Iraq's Air Force, many of its elite Republican Guard troops, and, according to the U.S. Defense Department, much of Iraq's war-making capacity. The attack on military targets in Baghdad and throughout Iraq and Kuwait involved several waves of aircraft and dozens of cruise missiles.
I saw Tomahawk cruise missiles leave the U.S. destroyer Paul F. Foster at exactly 1:37 local time. That's 3 hours ahead of British time. They curled in an arc over the ship and then steadied and headed northwest for Iraq. And by 2 o'clock our time, 20 minutes later, 40 more cruise missiles had been launched.
Less than 3 hours after the sound of anti-aircraft fire first echoed over Baghdad, President Bush told a television audience the world could wait no longer.
We are determined to knock out Saddam Hussein's nuclear bomb potential. We will also destroy his chemical weapons facilities. Much of Saddam's artillery and tanks will be destroyed. Our operations are designed to best protect the lives of all the coalition forces by targeting Saddam's vast military arsenal.
The president later authorized the U.S. Department of Energy to make more than 1 million barrels of oil available for sale each day from the federal government's strategic petroleum reserves in Louisiana and Texas. The presidential speech also sent world oil spot market prices downward after the surge that followed first reports of the bombing. The Saudi government sounded air raid sirens after the first wave of aircraft hit Baghdad and ordered journalists to shelters. Both the Saudi and U.S. governments denied reports that Iraq had managed to launch a handful of Scud missiles toward Saudi targets. Elsewhere in the Middle East, Jordan has put its armed forces on alert after state-run Amman Radio reported the attack on what it called sisterly Iraq. In Israel, which Iraq had promised would be a target of retaliation, the government ordered a state of alert, but said the Iraqi threat to Israel is diminishing. 5 hours after the airstrikes began, Baghdad radio broadcast a speech by President Saddam Hussein, in which he said the dawn of victory nears as what he called this great showdown begins. Mark Leff, CNN, reporting.
I'm Jonathan Mann.
I'm Patrick Emery. We continue with our coverage. Let's go now to Baghdad. CNN's John Holliman standing by. John?
Patrick, we've just received some news from Nick Robertson, CNN's chief satellite engineer here in Baghdad. He's been to the television station in an effort to get some videotape fed out to you. It can't be fed at the moment. Nick, you say you discovered some damage from last night's bombing, huh?
Yes, there was damage. There was some damage in the street, some broken glass and some small amounts of rubble, but there was one significant point of damage I noticed on a building I would best describe as a communications type of building with many dishes on the roof, microwave type dishes, maybe a post office communications type building. There was a sizable hole in one side of that, and one lower corner of the structure at the back had been sizably damaged.
And Nick also reports that about 60 minutes ago, he saw Iraqi President Saddam Hussein at the television station, apparently about to prepare a videotape message for the people of Iraq. At this point, we don't believe Iraqi television is on the air, but we're trying to determine that for sure. Yeah, and it appears that it's not on the air. That's the latest from Baghdad. We'll have more for you when we can get back to you.
John, about the fog, you still have it. Bring us up to date on conditions right now at a little after 10 in the morning.
Well, the fog's beginning to lift, Patrick, and in fact, I can go to the window and describe some things a little bit further away than I was able to before. Let's see. I see many more soldiers on the street than I've seen in the past. A revolving restaurant, Nick, tell me.
No, I see a revolving...
Oh, yes. I see a radar, a radar installation that appears that is an anti-aircraft installation here. That we've seen the anti-aircraft guns at this location in the past, but we've never seen a spinning radar outfit. So there is we've been talking with Wolf at the Pentagon and Charles Jaco in Saudi Arabia about spotting radars from the Iraqis. There appears to be one very close to our location here, which is now in operation. And as we look around the city, we can still see very little sign of any damage except what Nick reported, and also some broken glass, probably from the concussion of some of the bombs in several other locations around the city of Baghdad. As yet, we haven't been able to get our cameras out on the street. Iraqi officials won't let us take any pictures of the damage so far. We're hoping that as the day progresses, we'll be able to get you some new pictures and also to send you the pictures from last night, the dramatic footage of this air raid on Baghdad. Patrick?
We'll be checking back in with John Holliman as needed. Let's go to Jonathan Mann.
Patrick, we're going now to Charles Bierbauer at the White House. Charles?
Jonathan, attention has certainly shifted away from the White House in the course of the evening. And, of course, being the middle of the night here now, President Bush, we would imagine, is resting well. We do understand that Secretary of State Baker, Secretary of Defense Cheney are expected at the White House for breakfast, at least with the National Security Advisor, possibly with the President, too. There are no public events on the President's schedule for this now Thursday here. The last word, I guess it's Wednesday, I've lost track of time. The last word that we really got from the President is his words from the Oval Office.
Our objectives are clear. Saddam Hussein's forces will leave Kuwait. The legitimate government of Kuwait will be restored to its rightful place, and Kuwait will once again be free. Iraq will eventually comply with all relevant United Nations resolutions, and then, when peace is restored, it is our hope that Iraq will live as a peaceful and cooperative member of the family of nations, thus enhancing the security and stability of the Gulf. Some may ask, why act now? Why not wait? The answer is clear. The world could wait no longer. Sanctions, though having some effect, showed no signs of accomplishing their objective. Sanctions were tried for well over 5 months, and we and our allies concluded that sanctions alone would not force Saddam from Kuwait. While the world waited, Saddam Hussein systematically raped, pillaged, and plundered a tiny nation no threat to his own. He subjected the people of Kuwait to unspeakable atrocities. And among those maimed and murdered, innocent children. While the world waited, Saddam sought to add to the chemical weapons arsenal he now possesses an infinitely more dangerous weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon. And while the world waited, while the world talked peace and withdrawal, Saddam Hussein dug in and moved massive forces into Kuwait. While the world waited, while Saddam stalled, more damage was being done to the fragile economies of the Third World, the emerging democracies of Eastern Europe, to the entire world, including to our own economy. The United States, together with the United Nations, exhausted every means at our disposal to bring this crisis to a peaceful end. However, Saddam clearly felt that by stalling and threatening and defying the United Nations, he could weaken the forces arrayed against him.
There are no claims of victory, but the Bush administration is certainly satisfied with the way things are going in the early going. Others in Washington are not pleased. For several days, there's been a round-the-clock vigil and anti-war demonstration along Pennsylvania Avenue and in Lafayette Park across the street from the White House. Several hundred have gathered there. The crowd ebbs and flows in terms of its size. It has been mostly peaceful, but in the course of this evening, there were some clashes with police, some of them mounted on horseback. We understand that there were fists and bottles and arrests. President Bush has claimed throughout that he would have public support for his action, but it is not unanimous support. Jonathan?
Charles Bierbauer at the White House, thank you. Stick around, though. We'll be coming back to you in the hours ahead. Patrick?
John Sweeney is in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Let's go to him now and get an update, get an idea of what the capital of Saudi Arabia is like at this hour in the morning. John?
Actually quite normal, considering the circumstances. Saudi officials have scheduled a briefing for in about 45 minutes. We expect to hear from a Saudi general on the situation, and that will be the first time officially we have heard from the Saudis. Again, about 45 minutes at this spot. We got some indication early on of today's raids. About 20 minutes before the raids were reported in Baghdad, we had eyewitnesses outside the main U.S. the main air base in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, report seeing 9 F-15 American fighter planes taking off and heading north, accompanied by British fighter bombers and also by Kuwaiti aircraft. And on the nearby island nation of Bahrain, a British air wing commander says that British Jaguar aircraft will be involved in today's raids, following last night's raids by Britain's most powerful aircraft, the Tornado fighter bomber. That plane last night, the commander said, carried cluster bombs and also regular 1,000-pound bombs. We also have a report from Saudi oil industry officials who say that Iraqi artillery managed to destroy a couple of empty tanks in a refinery area in the neutral zone between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. However, that artillery reportedly just missed a 30,000 barrel a day oil refinery. And we first, here in the Saudi capital, we first got wind that something was going on about 2 hours before the official attack began, when many of us were awakened by the tremendous sound of several KC-135 tanker refueler planes taking off one after the other here. We now know that these planes were sent on a mission to refuel the many combat aircraft that took part in the invasion. I'm John Sweeney, CNN, live in Riyadh.
John, we want to just check with you briefly. Charles Jaco has indicated, to the best of his determination from his vantage point, there have been no losses of aircraft. Can you add to that, confirm it?
The Military Information Bureau here has yet to make an official statement. They have issued some fax communique. We have no confirmation on that. As far as I know, there have been no planes lost.
All right, John Sweeney in the capital of Saudi Arabia, giving us a picture of how things are in the capital. Let's go now to Jonathan Mann. Jonathan?
Patrick, let's go to Frances Hardin at the State Department. Frances, is there any diplomatic communication going on right now between the U.S. or other members of the multinational force and the government of Iraq?
Jonathan, not right now, but there was plenty of activity earlier today. Secretary of State James Baker at the moment is not in the building. He is at home, presumably in bed, and he'll be up early again tomorrow morning, or that is to say later this morning. He is due at the White House at 7:30 to have breakfast with National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft and also with Defense Secretary Dick Cheney. That is a meeting that could possibly also include the president. Wednesday morning, that is the day the attack began, Baker met with the Saudi ambassador to the United States, Prince Bandar. Bandar came here. He was asked for his country's green light for the battle to begin. After a quick call to Saudi Arabia, to King Fahd, that permission was granted. Baker spent much of the rest of the day calling the ambassadors of Israel, Kuwait, Germany, Syria, and Japan. He also called the chairman and ranking...
All right, we've got to interrupt Frances Hardin. We're going now to Baghdad for the latest. Go ahead, Baghdad.
Patrick, I wish I didn't have to tell you this, but there've just been two very loud explosions that rocked us a little bit here in downtown Baghdad. We're not sure precisely where they came from. I was about to start looking at some videotape of the initial attack last night, and I couldn't tell whether I was hearing the videotape or the live until my cameraman, Mark Viello, said, nope, this is not Memorex. And we look out now and look for signs of damage. I'm looking at the downtown Baghdad airport, a small airport. Don't see any sign of damage there. I hear some bells ringing someplace in the distance. I don't see any smoke anywhere as I look through the horizon. I'm looking at old downtown Baghdad. I see a huge water tank that's still intact. As I continue to look, I see two minarets of a mosque way off in the distance, perhaps 4 or 5 miles away. And I continue to see birds flying over the city. I can't tell you what just happened. I know it shook us up again as we have been accepting and feeling some incoming fire for some time here. At this point, Patrick, I can't tell you anything. I'm looking up in the sky to see if I see signs of jet planes flying over, and I just do not. I think since we can't tell you any more, we'll let you go back to what you were doing before, and we'll just keep our eyes and ears peeled here in Baghdad.
We can stay with you beyond the two explosions that you heard. Give us an idea of what the hotel is like. You're still on the 14th floor all night long. People who have been with us have heard about the bomb shelter below. What's going on in the home you're occupying now?
Well, in our CNN rooms, we have several rooms, Patrick, and we're here. Some people are trying to rest, to sleep, because none of us has had any sleep in days and days now, it seems like. The bomb shelters in the basement of the hotel were opened. When people went down there right after the initial attack in the middle of the night, they were locked in those shelters. They weren't allowed to leave, and that was too bad. The people got kind of cramped quarters down there, and several of us, Bernie Shaw, Peter Arnett, and I, were able to hide out from Iraqi authorities up here in our broadcast booth, so we were able to avoid being rounded up with everybody else, and that's how we were able to talk to you all night long. But in the hotel now, I can walk out into the hallway. There's still no electricity, still no water. Still, the telephone service inside the hotel is restored. I can talk to another room on another floor, but I still can't make a call outside. The operator at the hotel says all telephone lines down in Baghdad. It could be because of that report we received from our engineer Nick Robertson a few minutes ago that one of the major communication towers in downtown had been damaged by something in the attack overnight. So the hotel is still a nice place to live, probably compared to other places around Baghdad. It's one of the best places to live, but I'll tell you at this moment I would rather be with you in Atlanta, Georgia.
John, tell us about the last attack. Give us a little bit of a comparison to the one that you experienced in the middle of the night when all of this got going.
Well, what we just heard, Patrick, was just a couple of loud blasts. It could have been anti-aircraft fire, and in fact, I believe that's probably what it was, from an anti-aircraft gun on the east side of our location. And I'm looking out the window right now at another anti-aircraft battery on another side of our location, which has a radar tower spinning, a radar dish spinning around on top of it. It's the first time. We've been here for a long time, and we've seen this particular installation in the past, but we've never seen the radar dish up and operating. So obviously, it's looking for incoming from someplace. Also, let me look out the window here with you for a moment. There's a small, not big enough for a 727, but for small private jet airport in downtown Baghdad. I see planes on the ground there. I don't see much activity of planes taxiing or anything like that, but it appears to be undamaged at this hour. And off in the distance, I hear a rumbling right now. I don't know if you can hear this rumbling, but it's coming from where I stand. I believe it is coming from the west. It sounds almost like at the beginning of a cowboy movie when you hear of a herd of horses thundering off in the distance. That's the sort of sound I can hear right now out the window, and I believe the direction it's coming from is the west. But at any rate, compared to what we experienced last night, this is small potatoes. Last night there was barrage after barrage after barrage, wave after wave of planes, and the skies were brightly lighted with anti-aircraft fire from the Iraqis, which, from all we could tell, did not have a lot of effect. I'm hearing now the sounds of what I believe are big bombs falling. I don't see anything from these bombs, but I can just hear it. It's a rumbling. Patrick, you'll remember I covered the earthquake in San Francisco for us back a couple of Octobers ago, and it's that sort of feeling that I'm getting here. I'm going to let you stick the microphone out the window, see if you can hear what I hear. It sounds like distant thunder. I'm thankful to be able to tell you that this attack that is occurring right now in Baghdad is much further away from the central city than what we heard last night. And I'm going to continue to peer out the window through the white clouds with some breaks so that you can see blue, just to see if I could see some sort of sign of some kind of aircraft. And I do not. I'll just tell you that. And just as quickly as the rumbling started, it seems to have stopped here in Baghdad. Patrick, it just ended just this instant.
John, do we know any more? Have you been able to make any kind of investigation of the building that you had described earlier with the white smoke pouring out of it? Any speculation or any firm ideas on what that was?
Well, we thought perhaps it might be a smoke generator of some kind. We didn't know. One Iraqi official said he thought it might be some trash burning rather than anything intentional to fill up the air. But the volume of the white smoke that was coming out of this whatever it was at the side of this building was something far beyond a pile of trash. And the smoke was all pure white. It looked just like fog, only it had an awful stench to it. And so, we don't know. I've never seen anything like it. We might get our people at the Pentagon or in Saudi Arabia who know some things about, instruments of war to say, to tell us if there's anything like that in the U.S. arsenal, something to put a lot of fog-looking smoke over a wide area. Let me describe the streets of Baghdad for you for a minute. There still is traffic. There are a lot more soldiers on the street around our hotel than there have been in the past. And it still seems that people are trying to go about their business here despite all this thunder, which is obviously not coming from heaven, but coming from the coalition partners who are continuing to keep Baghdad under attack.
John, I guess we're coming up on, roughly 8 hours now since the first attack, 10:30, it's coming up on 10:30 a.m. right now in Baghdad, but around 8 hours ago, the first strike hit the city, and following it at that time, you and Bernie and Peter Arnett had a couple of encounters with security people in the hotel. I'm wondering if you can, and if you've had any other encounters that I may have missed, can you describe any of these people, the attitude that they have about what is happening to their country?
I asked one fellow about the comparison between this and the Iran-Iraq war, which he had obviously lived through. He was a man probably 25 or 30 years old. He was the man who took many of our videotapes. And I asked him the question, and he said, "Oh, this is much different from the Iran-Iraq war." And I've been talking to the Iraqi people for some time about comparisons and things, and they always said they didn't expect the U.S. to be able to do any more to them than was done in the Iran-Iraq war. And As it turns out, this fellow indicated very strongly to me that this certainly was worse than the Iran-Iraq war. I'm looking out on the east side of our hotel. Our producer, Robert Weiner, says there's been some damage here. I can't get my microphone cable to you, Robert. You'll have to come to me and describe for me what you see out this room of the hotel, out the east side. Just tell me what you see.
Out beyond the foreign ministry, there has been an attack. There are thick, billowing clouds of black smoke. The anti-aircraft guns, the batteries that are in front of us on one of the buildings have been at alert. They have fired off several rounds. I don't think you could hear those, John, when you were on the other side. But people are racing for another attack here.
Yeah, okay, Robert. So we've got black smoke pouring out of one building. I'm going to, Patrick, as soon as you and I get a break from this conversation, I'm going to get a somewhat longer microphone cord so I can travel more, more distance through this place and give you better outlooks from all sides of the hotel where we're staying. I'll look back out my west-facing window again to tell you, after a few unnerving moments in the past few minutes, things seem to be pretty calm again, except for this thick, black, billowing smoke that we see on the other side of the place.
John Holloman, take a breather. Stay safe. We'll be back to you, obviously, in the very near future. Jonathan?
Patrick, as the multinational attack on Iraq continues, let's go now to the country, to the city that Iraq has targeted for its own eventual attack, if one comes, and that is Israel and Tel Aviv, where CNN's Richard Roth is standing by. Richard?
Yes, Jonathan, Israel is breathing a little easier this morning, but officials are saying don't break out the wine yet. Iraqi missile batteries that may have been pointed at Israel, and specifically Tel Aviv, may have been destroyed, but authorities are calling on everyone to obey civil defense emergency procedures. Basically, the operational line right now in Israel is we're prepared for anything. But certainly Tel Aviv residents are very pleased to see the sun come up here. Saddam Hussein vowed to make Tel Aviv his first target should he get hit in Iraq by U.S.-led forces. But Israel is not involved in this conflict so far. CNN's Richard Blystone in Jerusalem has more on the reaction here in the Jewish state to the U.S.-led raid on Baghdad.
Most of Israel slept through it, as Saddam Hussein's threat to attack the Jewish state with missiles was violently contradicted. The lights of prime target Tel Aviv stayed on. An Iraqi ballistic missile wouldn't need them to find or lose its way. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, who'd promised the U.S. not to make a preemptive strike at the missiles, had been informed an hour before Operation Desert Shield became Desert Storm. Essential personnel lugged their gas masks as they reported into the General Staff headquarters at Kinya Base in Tel Aviv. Go home, the radio told others. Stay home. Open the box. Get the mask ready. Israeli television came on the air to show everyone, once again, how to do it. Traffic all but disappeared from the streets of Jerusalem, but the sirens never sounded. In the Foreign Ministry's Situation Room in Jerusalem, the crisis team glued to the television as an attack became more and more unlikely. Deputy Foreign Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, pleased but cautious.
As you know, Israel is not involved in this conflict, but we follow the events very closely. We wish the American and coalition forces Godspeed and full success in achieving their missions, and we hope that they'll come home safely, all of them, and quickly.
In downtown Tel Aviv, nonchalance.
Nobody is worried about this, and we're very happy that they make that come in this situation to finish him quickly and shortly.
And a little early rejoicing. Defense Minister Moshe Aarons went on TV to say, don't rejoice too soon.
It's too early to say the danger to Israel has passed. We must continue to be alert and ready.
But, he said, it's a very good morning for Israel. A missile barrage from western Iraq, more than 300 miles away, had been considered a long shot in more ways than one. Israeli analysts thought at most a handful would get off the ground, and those with small payloads, and so inaccurate, it was said, that Jerusalem might be in no more danger than Amman, Jordan, 70 miles away. If that was an exaggeration, it never got put to the test. Jerusalem residents ventured, few and cautious, into the streets after daybreak, their gas masks still close at hand.
I just woke up and I turned on the radio and the TV. I heard. I make a coffee for everybody. We said, we're laughing, and that's it.
Police patrolled warily in Arab East Jerusalem, part of it under curfew, along with the occupied West Bank. Palestinians were still backing Saddam Hussein.
You know, we have to be with him. We don't have another choice.
In defeat, a kind of victory for Iraq's president that'll take more than bombs to blow away. The scores against Iraq's missiles are a relief politically as well as militarily. Israel had agreed to let the U.S. deal with them initially, but warned...
All right, we'll get back to Richard Blystone. Back to Baghdad, bombing taking place. Go ahead, John Holloman.
Patrick, I apologize for interrupting my colleague Dick Blystone in Jerusalem. We're hearing the same sound that we were hearing a few minutes ago, this rolling thunder of what we assume is incoming bombs coming from a direction which may well be to the west of our location in the middle of downtown Baghdad. And we're looking around for the source of it. We don't hear it right now, but while I was away, I was able to get a longer microphone cord so I can go over and perhaps a little better describe for you this smoke from some building which has obviously been hit in one of the most recent attacks. Out the window on the east side of our hotel, one of the hotel's power generators has been fired up. We can see that, so it may be that we're going to get some electricity from here. As I look out the window, I see thick plumes of black or grayish smoke coming from a building which may be as much as a mile away. My colleague Mark Biello is looking at this through a very good set of binoculars. Mark, can you see anything as far as the source of that smoke?
No, most of the smoke is hidden by a building in the front. There's some communication towers in front of it. My guess would be some kind of oil processing or oil refinery in the outskirts of Baghdad.
Yeah, we know that Baghdad has plenty of those, plenty of oil refineries. I'm going to stick my head out another window because you may be able to hear some of the sound. It's more sound coming from generally the same area where the smoke is coming from, which I guess is north from our location in the central city. And as Mark points out, it may well be an oil refinery because there is so much thick black smoke mixed in with some white smoke. So there might be something that combines oil and water, which gives you smoke that's this color. The smoke is coming out in such volume now that it's creating a pall over a big section of the sky. As I look out on downtown Baghdad from a different vantage point than you and I have had in the past, Patrick, I can tell you about some things that I wasn't able to tell you about before. The entire downtown section still seems totally unaffected by this. The buildings, the shrines, the Muslim holy places have not been touched at all by the incoming United States. And I see, I'm going to tell you about something that may get me in trouble with the Iraqi government, but I'll tell you anyway. I'm looking out at an anti-aircraft installation on a building near my location. I won't give you the direction on the compass because I'm sure that would get me in trouble. But the people at this installation are moving their gun barrels back and forth. They are searching the skies right now, attempting to find whatever aircraft are responsible for this thick black smoke that we're talking about, which may well be from a chemical plant or an oil refinery or some sort of industrial facility, because that black smoke continues to pour out even in daylight here in Baghdad. I can see from this location, I believe, the Tigris River, and I see nothing really unusual there on the river banks as we look out the window. It appears that the river has not been involved very much in what's happening here. And so the situation in Baghdad, which has been certainly remarkably testy for the past, I guess, nearly 12 hours now, is getting even more testy minute by minute as we continue to be hit with some sort of bombs and anti-aircraft fire at those bombs. Patrick?
John, we can talk more about the bombing that's going on, but if we've got a moment here, I wonder if you might just tell our viewers, you know, we're thrilled here that all of you CNN folks have made it through the night. I wonder if you could tell us and try to give us a feeling of what it must be like to be in that hotel. I know, for one, I would be wondering when the 2,000-pound bomb would hit the roof. How did you feel through all of that?
If you're talking personal emotions, Patrick, I think that is what you're talking. We've all had to face up to this. We had a meeting of our staff last night to decide if we would all stay here or some of us would leave and go back and our plan was to get on a charter plane, some of us today, and go back perhaps to Amman, Jordan. As it turns out, there probably won't be any charter flights today. We are here because our good night's sleep was interrupted by this first American Allied attack here on Baghdad. But the emotions, I mean, you look on the brightest side you can. We've considered every possible option that we can think of as a better place to be than this hotel. This hotel is the newest, thickest, best-built, most modern hotel, certainly in Baghdad. The problem with it is that it's in the center of the city, and if the coalition decided it was going to do a great deal of damage to the shrines in downtown Baghdad, to the big government buildings here, to the ministries, our hotel would be directly in the flight path. And in fact, last night, as this attack was going on, we could hear the fighter jets coming right over our hotel as they were on their way, and we were very pleased that they went somewhere else before they loosed the bombs and the bullets that they carried. But it's an emotional roller coaster. It's an up and down situation. Patrick, I know you want to talk more about feelings than things I'm seeing right now, but I must tell you I see on the west side of Baghdad more smoke coming up from a building near one of the main water tanks for the city. The smoke is just about over now, but there was a huge puff of it a few moments ago, and now the smoke is beginning to dissipate. And out the window, I hear the pummeling of more bombs as we talk. But I'm surprised. I'll tell you a personal story, Patrick. I had no idea. I've never been in a war. Peter Arnett, my colleague, has spent much of his life in the Vietnam War, and he's used to covering things like this. And I didn't know how I would react. I guess I was, the options here last night when the bombing started were to stay here and try to cover the story, or to get into the hotel's fallout shelter, or the bomb shelter. We decided to stay here and do the best job we could of staying in touch. And we felt it was a miracle that the microphone that I'm using to talk to you and the communication circuit it's hooked up to was allowed to stay, in operation through this whole night. The fact that it's still working, we still consider a miracle, and we'll continue to use it for all it's worth for as long as we can until the communication link gets cut. We have a couple backups that we might also try to use if this goes down, but this is obviously the most convenient way for us to talk. And as long as I can talk to you and hear from you and hear from our other correspondents about what's going on, I have personally a much greater sense of personal security than I might if I didn't have access to this. I've got to, before I throw it back to you, Patrick, I've got to go to the window here and look out and just see if I can see some signs of the airplanes that are responsible for all the noise that I hear here. And I don't. I see birds in the sky. I hear these loud reports. As I would describe them as being like the sounds from a battleship, the 26-inch guns on a battleship like the New Jersey. Well, there was anti-aircraft guns. You probably heard that. A little crack and pop, and I believe that anti-aircraft fire is much of what we're hearing right now. As I look out toward the south, or rather toward the north, I see the little downtown airstrip. It still seems to be okay. I don't see any signs really of much additional new smoke on the horizon, but it's eerie. It really is. That's going to be the word to describe this part of the war in the Gulf as far as seeing in Baghdad. You put your head out the window and you get this eerie feeling from everything around you. Patrick?
And do you also get a feeling of history, John? I don't want to sound melodramatic, but it can't escape coming to mind Edward R. Murrow somewhere in London telling the folks back home, this is London. Do you get that at all?
Sure, absolutely. It's not overpowering, but you do get a sense that in the past 25 years there hasn't been a battle like the battle that we were able to witness last night. And we know that last night there were 45 journalists, period, from the world in Baghdad, and CNN had 8 of them. And it makes us very proud of the company we work for and the people we serve, the folks who are watching this broadcast right now. So, yeah, we do have a sense of the history of what we're covering, certainly.
Tell me, John, also, you maybe go back over for some of our viewers, because of the word that you continue to use, eerie. You've seen taxi cabs driving in reverse. You've seen a few people walking around, and you've seen anti-aircraft installations being altered slightly in position.
Yeah, there are a lot of things like that, Patrick. I mean, everything in Baghdad doesn't fit the American mindset, I guess. The people here seem to disregard the prospect of death in a fiery war. The people seem, and I've interviewed hundreds of them in the couple of months I've been here, they seem to really believe it's okay to die in a war if your side is right, and they believe their side is right. They believe President Saddam Hussein is a great leader, and if he tells them to go and die for Kuwait, they're going to go and die for Kuwait. I talked to a mother with a baby at a bus station a couple of days ago. Baby's a beautiful little child, 9 months old, and his name is Haider. And I said, ma'am, if Haider were killed in this war with the United States, would it be worth it just for Kuwait? And she said, well, I'd hate to sacrifice my baby, but Kuwait is very important. I mean, they really believe that here, I think. I don't think they could be faking it, this many people over this many months. I think, it's in the mindset, and that's part of the strangeness. It's not like, if you and I were in a situation where there were bombs coming, I don't know what it would take for us to be willing to defend, and lay down our lives for something inanimate, like a piece of ground with some oil in it, It's not the way you and I react to things, and that's part of the eeriness. As I look out the window now, I hear one report, loud report, noise like a bomb after another. It's unnerving to me, and I'm seeing 3 women in traditional Muslim dress, like you see the women in Saudi Arabia wearing. They're walking down the street kind of nonchalantly, and their cars still going by as this happens. There's a soccer field across from our hotel. I don't see anybody playing soccer. I'm kind of pleased that at least the young children who would play outside on a normal day are not playing outside on a day like this, because anything could happen, of course. So that's part of the eeriness, and I mean, just you can come up with 100 examples. This is not like life where we live.
Well, John, you mentioned the feeling that the people have in Iraq, their determination and feeling that Kuwait is their 19th province, and you expressed the sentiment that we may not feel or have an understanding for it. The British division of that part of the world, would that be something like the British saying Florida is no longer yours some 40 years ago?
Everything. Hopefully you did so, but we have to take into account the possibility that here and then one launcher, one missile has been hidden and might be used. Therefore, we'll wait another day or two before we will be in the clear.
The PLO has lumped Israel along in with the U.S. and Europe, calling this raid cowardly aggression. Are you very worried now about the focus shifting, should the U.S. put away Saddam in Iraq, shifting now to Israel and the calls for a Mideast peace conference and things like that?
Well, let's first see what will be the outcome of the struggle, the use of force, to bring about the uprooting of the Iraqi forces from Kuwait. Let's wait for that and don't pay any attention to Mr. Arafat. Anyhow, he ran away from Baghdad. He secured himself being in Tunisia or in Europe. He didn't stay with Saddam Hussein.
How serious did your country take the threats of Saddam Hussein to hit Tel Aviv, to make that his first target should the U.S. strike Iraq?
We took it very seriously. Hopefully that the U.S. forces have eliminated Saddam Hussein's capability to do it. We'll have to wait and see in the coming 1 or 2 days.
Okay, Yitzhak Rabin, thank you very much for joining us here, former Prime Minister of Israel and a leading Labor Party leader. This is Richard Roth, CNN, reporting live from Tel Aviv.
Richard, we're now going to go to U.S. pool video that's just come in from Saudi Arabia.
We're doing downtown.
The SAM missile sites in town?
Around the perimeter of the
Around
town.
the perimeter of Baghdad?
That's correct.
And tell me again about the resistance that you ran into?
Lots of ground fire, lots of AAA, that's anti-aircraft artillery. And like I say, I think there was one SAM fired that I saw, but it was so far away and up through the smoke and haze, it was hard to make it out.
So nothing came close to you?
No, but that's the beauty of the system. We can stay far enough away that that's not going to be a problem for us, from the SAMs anyway. The bullets are the ones that scare me.
Now you're going back after breakfast.
We got to go eat breakfast, look at the next mission, and get ready for the next go.
Did all the planes come back?
All 12 of mine came back, and to my knowledge, everybody got back.
When did you actually come back?
I'm sorry?
How long ago did you come back? He's got to head in.
What you're now seeing, of course, are pilots who've just returned from sorties over Iraqi positions. This is U.S. pool tape shot by American journalists and pooled, that is, shared among American news media. It is unedited, as you can see, but it has been cleared by U.S. military authorities, so you needn't worry that any sensitive information is being given away by this video.
Video from somewhere in Saudi Arabia, U.S. pool tape, weapons loading that has taken place, I am led to believe, between sorties. We're obviously seeing something being done during daylight hours, presumably for a next mission. We should clarify for viewers that there are three sources of video, at least right now, three sources of video that we are looking forward to in the immediate future. It's this unedited, or well, not necessarily unedited, in this case unedited, U.S. pool tape. This is directed by Pentagon. You can shoot this, you can't shoot that. Then you have, this is the U.S., there's also British tape, and an equivalent of this, a counterpart to this, very similar material. And then what we have not seen as yet is going to be actual Pentagon video, and that we're hoping for soon, and that we'll see some actual in-the-air video from aircraft as the aircraft approach targets in Iraq, the capital city of Baghdad. As we say, somewhere in Saudi Arabia is all we can say about this, because that's all we know about the location of this video for fairly obvious security reasons. Rather an awesome spectacle, though, when you imagine the firepower being loaded up here. And it was interesting talking with John Holloman, as he mentioned, speaking with an Iraqi citizen who...
Military commanders...
All right, well, we have...
Military commanders fully expected an Iraqi retaliation on this airbase. In fact, during the night, there were 2 air raid alerts. Iraqi missiles apparently were headed in this direction, but local officials said they fell short. I'm Jim Hickey with the television pool in the Persian Gulf.
All right, obviously
safety.
What we're watching here, unedited.
Military commanders fully expected an Iraqi
Unedited tape as Jim Hickey, the pool reporter.
Fully expected an Iraqi retaliation on this airbase. In fact, there were 2 air raid alerts during the night.
All right, we'll come back to this videotape as soon as possible. Back to Baghdad. John Holloman, what have you for us? John Holloman.
I'm sorry, Patrick. If you were trying to reach me, I was talking to somebody else.
Oh, all right. I was led to believe that we needed to get back to you in a hurry,
Patrick,
John.
I'm always available to you, my friend. Let me do this. When last we spoke, I was able to look out the western side of our hotel. I haven't been able to look out the eastern side any further. Give me about a minute of your broadcast time, and I'll take a quick look and tell you what I see on the other side of this place. Just a moment. I'll make a quick run through the hotel. The atmosphere here, despite the fact there's no electricity, is beginning to get back to some sense of normalcy, I guess. The beds are still available, although I haven't seen one in a while. And let's see, I'll just look out the window. I see the same group of soldiers with anti-aircraft weapons that I saw before. I see, oh my goodness. Patrick, you'll remember, I told you when we looked out sort of the north side of our hotel, we saw some black and white mixed smoke a few minutes ago, and I thought that smoke was beginning to dissipate. It is not. There is something here. We don't know what kind of facility it is, and we'll be unable to find out for a while because we still don't have telephones, but there is this huge cloud of black smoke continuing to billow out of this facility, whatever it is. My guess, based on having covered many fires in my career earlier days, is could be an oil refinery, it could be a chemical factory, but it is something that has a great deal of flammable material in it because this thing has been burning and putting out a huge, maybe quarter-mile wide cloud of smoke for more than half an hour, and it's burning, or the smoke is coming out in greater volume now than it was a half hour ago. So whatever it is, not only is it burning, it's burning more than it was before. And so that's the latest from Baghdad. We haven't heard any sounds of firing in the past few minutes, and every time there is no firing, that's a good sign for us, of course. Patrick?
John, as you described the scene, the black and white smoke and the possibilities of what that might be, can you tell us, after the days that you have spent there in advance of the attacks that you have witnessed, did you get a lay of the land? Are there some, can you tell us about petroleum installations nearby and anything of that sort?
Well, I could, Patrick. I know a little bit about some of the installations. I'm concerned a little bit just about letting everybody who is listening in on this conversation, both in the United States and in the Iraqi government, know exactly what we know at this point. I mean, there are refineries around the city of Baghdad. I'll tell you that. There are...
John, we'll be back to you. John, we've got to interrupt.
One kind or another. Excuse me. Go ahead, Pat.
We want to interrupt. We're looking now at some, again, we're back to this U.S. pool videotape. This is unedited material coming in to us. Pilots headed for their aircraft. And let's look upon the wings. The Death Angels, we can read, see if we see armament.
We're breaking into that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought you might care to know the information that I have thus far. As you almost certainly will know, Allied forces attacked military targets in Iraq and Baghdad last night. The operation began just before midnight our time and is a very large and continuing operation. The attack was carried out by a four-nation force: United States forces, British forces, Saudi Arabian forces, and Kuwaiti forces. It was, of course, carried out under the authority of United Nations Resolution 678. Early indications are that it has been a very successful operation. I have just received an initial report this morning from the Secretary of State for Defense, Tom King, and from the Chief of the Defense Staff. I'm pleased to tell you that at the present time, I am not yet aware of any British casualties. We will provide further information on the detailed success of the operation at a later stage when that is available. Tom King will hold a press conference later on this morning, and I shall myself, of course, be making a statement to the House of Commons this afternoon. I know that everybody would share my feelings at the moment that our principal thoughts and prayers are with the troops who have been carrying out this operation and with their families who must be so concerned about the matter at home. Immense trouble has been taken, of course, to ensure that it is military targets that are the target of this attack, and an enormous amount of effort and care has gone into ensuring that there are the minimum possible number of civilian casualties. If I may, I will take what questions you may have and answer them insofar as I'm yet able.
Prime Minister, can I ask you first of all, would you consider a pause to allow for negotiations to take place?
No, this is an ongoing operation. If Saddam Hussein were prepared to start withdrawing from Kuwait, then that is a separate matter. But for the moment, this is an ongoing operation. I am not prepared to risk the potential lives of British forces, and I'm sure the other commanders feel the same, by a pause that would allow Saddam Hussein to regroup his forces and perhaps launch a substantial attack. I do not think that would be right, and I think the security of our forces must be a matter to which we will give overriding concern.
Prime Minister, can you tell us a little bit about your conversation with President Bush before this began? What was the sort of mood of the discussion that you had with him, and what was the format that you agreed, the context in which it would all work?
No one enters into an operation of this scale or of this nature lightly. I've had a considerable number of conversations with President Bush about the possibility of us needing to use force at the end of the deadline over a considerable period of time. The final decision that we would use force if Iraq did not remove themselves from Kuwait was taken very shortly after the conclusion of the House of Commons debate on Tuesday.
Prime Minister, do you honestly believe that you've used force as a last resort and that there was no other way of getting Saddam Hussein out?
Yes, that has been our position for a long time. Of course, the United Nations resolution was set some time ago with a particular deadline, so that there was no doubt that in international law there was a proper authority to use force after the expiry of the deadline on the 15th. I don't think Saddam Hussein could have been in any doubt at all from what has been said over recent weeks that at the expiry of that there was authority to use force and that we would find it necessary to do so to expel him from Kuwait. I am myself satisfied that that was necessary, and I hope this will be a speedy and successful operation.
Prime Minister, do you have any assessment at this stage of how long military action might have to continue?
No, there can be no assessment of that at this stage. We have some preliminary assessments of the damage that has been done, but we will need a considerable degree of extra information before we can be precisely clear about that. Thus far, the assessments are that a considerable amount of damage has been done, but they are very preliminary assessments, and we will have a good deal more information later.
When did you first hear about the attack?
I, of course, have known about the timing of the attack, as I said a few moments ago, from the consultations I had with President Bush at the conclusion of the House of Commons debate on Tuesday. I therefore was aware of the time the attack would take place.
How have you spent the night, and what are your feelings now that war has started?
No one wanted this conflict. No one can be pleased about the fact that this conflict has been necessary, and I regret that as much as anyone. I have been up throughout the night. We have had an open line to the White House, and there has been very considerable consultation throughout the night. I hope now that it is clear to Iraq that the scale of the Allied operation is such that they cannot win. I hope that Saddam Hussein will now make a very swift decision that he must do what he has been invited to do by the world community for a long time, that he should get out of Kuwait and enable this matter to end swiftly and decisively. I hope that he will do that.
Peace with yourself.
Prime Minister, could the war be over in a matter of days?
All right, the Prime Minister, Major, we are going back, though, from him to Baghdad. John Holloman, what have you got now?
Patrick, it's an exciting event a minute here, it seems like. I was just looking out the window with my producer, Robert Wiener, as we were talking about other things, and we heard a very loud, high-pitched roar. I said to Robert, what in the world was that? He said, I bet it was a jet. But the fact is, it went by so rapidly, we couldn't even see it. So something has just passed by our hotel at a very high rate of speed, and about 30 or 40 seconds after we heard the loud noise here, we began to hear some explosions at a distance several miles away from this hotel. So it could be that the two things were connected, that this was a fighter bomber of some kind that came in here with some ordnance that it dropped onto a rock someplace a distance away from downtown Baghdad, where we are standing looking out the window, I must say somewhat nervously at the present time. That's all I can tell you, Patrick. You know, Bernie Shaw and Peter Arnett and I were talking last night, and the fact is that this is the first time, CNN's presence in Baghdad is the first time that an American team of reporters has been able to cover a war in progress from the camp of the enemy. In previous wars, the American reporters have been with the American troops as a general rule, and occasionally we get to go to the enemy camp. This is a much different situation from that. We are here. We have been here. There's more anti-aircraft fire that we can hear outside our window right now, and we intend to be here for as long as it takes for us to bring as complete a representation of what is going on in Iraq as we can to our viewers. So, anyway, I'll let you get back to where you were before. I apologize for interrupting.
All right, John, let's talk briefly about, you talked about the loud roar, the whining roar that just passed by, probably, as you say, a jet. Maybe for any viewers who might be just joining us or are rejoining us after a few hours of sleep themselves, can you describe a little of what has taken place? We've had flights that would jam radar, then we've had bombing missions, and sort some of this out, if you can, and what that's been like.
Well, we continue to see things that we haven't seen before. My colleague Bernie Shaw, who's continuing to try to take a nap and can't do it with all these loud, disturbing noises, has just walked back into the room, Patrick. We've seen many things. We've seen an anti-aircraft installation which now has a spinning radar dish on top of it that's in operation. We've seen bombing missions that have left what looks to be either a chemical plant or a refinery in flames with huge clouds of black smoke puffing out. We've discovered a communications tower in downtown Baghdad that has been damaged by a bombing attack that our engineer Nick Robertson. Bernie?
John, I was down in my room minding my own business, and it seems to me what's going on is a dichotomy, and I apologize to our viewers around the world
for having had no sleep in 2.5 days. Yeah, go ahead.
It seems to me that there is a dichotomy here, and what is happening, in my judgment, is that the local people, the Baghdadis, are saying, Saddam, you conduct your war. We're going to conduct our lives. Because when you hear these reports, when you feel these concussions from the bombs that I felt, I've been trying to sleep, and sleep won't come. I cannot shut down my mind, and I wish I could. But it is clear that there's a dichotomy in Baghdad. Yeah. It seems as if the people are saying to Saddam, you fight your war. We're going to carry on our lives.
Yeah. But as we look out here at the fighting of this war, Bernie, we see very little Iraqi response to what seems to be continuing probes from the American or the coalition forces as they come through here. This incident just now where we had a jet, we're sure it was a jet, had to be a jet.
Oh, I heard it. It went swish. And ladies and gentlemen, I was sitting in my room a few moments ago, and I was trying to, how can we describe what it sounds like? First of all, you know it's happened after the fact. There's no way that you can see an F-15, an F-16 coming. There's no way. But after it has come and gone, you hear the anti-aircraft batteries going off. And what you hear in the background, before you even hear the anti-aircraft batteries, you hear boom, 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 boom. And as you hear that, is that the sound, John?
Absolutely.
That's the sound. And as you hear that boom, 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 you then feel the earth shake under your feet. And it is frightening. It is frightening. It is thunder. It is lightning. It is frightening. And what makes it even more eerie is that it is happening in daylight. That is what makes it more eerie. It is happening in daylight.
I never expected the coalition forces to attack in daylight because they've got a lot more security attacking at night. But obviously, or apparently, I won't say obviously, it appears that the coalition forces are so secure that in the air superiority that they have, that they just will attack with impunity. And another attack appears to be coming now. There's something going on the other side of the building, which Chris Krismanich, our editor, suggested that we go and take a look at. So we're coming now. And Robert Wiener and Mark Biello are out here having a look. Robert, describe to me what you see, and I'll be able to look as our viewers get your word picture.
Well, we hear more than we actually see right now. There was some puffs of smoke, the anti-aircraft batteries out in the distance, and again, that rolling thunder that we've heard continually during the night, in which you and Bernie have been describing a moment ago. The battery on the building, which we are not permitted to name, has been at the ready. The gun has been swiveling, turning in various directions, looking for the planes.
And there are people running now on the grounds of where we are. It's a very frustrating, it has to be a very frustrating feeling for the Iraqis as the coalition forces conduct their military operations, because it is obvious, it is apparent, they cannot respond to what is being laid on them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really hard for them.
Yeah, it's like a football game where one team is getting all the points. And at least that's the way it looks to us. I mean, the Iraqis may have a totally different point of view from this, but from our vantage point, that's what it looks like. The coalition forces are coming through here wave after wave after wave, and you don't even hear that much anti-aircraft fire anymore.
I still say, this is a dichotomy. It seems as if the common people of Baghdad are saying, Saddam Hussein, you conduct your war. We're going to conduct our lives. And it's eerie. It is broad daylight, and these bombing raids continue on the outskirts of Baghdad.
And there's a group of 5 people there walking over to a place to get lunch. I mean, they're not running, they're just walking slowly.
As I say, these bombing raids are continued on the outskirts of Baghdad and on Baghdad proper, yet life is going on. It's as if, I hope I don't sound redundant, but there is a dichotomy of life here. It's as if the people are saying, Saddam, conduct your war. We're going to conduct our lives.
All right, Bernie, thanks very much. I'm going to poke my head out the window here for a moment, if I can, over cameraman Mark Biello, a man who has a great pair of binoculars who's helping spot for us here as we look over downtown Baghdad today. Still, that building with the huge clouds of smoke, the factory or industrial complex, whatever it is, it continues to burn. As we look out in another direction to the south, I'll see what I can see to report to you. And there's not much there, really. It's I see a giant picture of Saddam Hussein, a poster painted on concrete. Virtually every place you look in Baghdad, you see those, and there's another one of them right here near our area.
I don't want to sound trite, and I hope we have not sounded trite in our reporting, but I'll be responsible for my observations and my remarks and attributed to me. But I've said all along, when I sat back home in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and sat in Tacoma Station. Tacoma Station is a little jazz club, and it is dear to my heart. It's owned by a dear friend, and I hope the network won't mind my mentioning this, but it's germane to the point I'm trying to make. Bobby Boyd is the owner of Tacoma Station, and I've often sat watching the closing minutes of NFL football games, John Holloman, and I've always said, as I looked at the screen, I hope, or not I hope, I said, I wish, or I'm glad I do not have to make my living that way. Watching Joe Montana and Ripken of the Washington Redskins, obviously I'm very fond of them, even though my son likes the Chicago Bears. And all I can say is that, while I've said I don't want to make my living that way, the way the NFL football players make their living, I would trade places with Mr. Ripken. I would trade places with Mr. Montana and other players in the NFL right now.
This is a little bit more dangerous, probably, than what they do day to day, Bernie. At least there's the appearance that it might be. And as we look out here on the city, it appears that things have gotten more calm.
I want to discuss something with you, John, that is much more serious than my wishing that I could trade places with the players in the NFL.
Yeah.
And please, guys, don't hold this against me for these remarks, but the remarks I just made. When I was in my room a few moments ago before I ran down the hall, it occurred to me, and I ask our viewers around the world to entertain this question. Push this question through your mind. Why is the government of Iraq allowing us to report what is happening here? And I will tell you, we did a conversation, an interview with Walter Cronkite. I don't know how many hours ago it was. John Holloman, you tell me if you know.
It was before the bomb started, so I guess it was probably 7 or 8 hours ago, Bernie.
Okay, 7 or 8 hours ago. We did an interview with Walter Cronkite. He was reporting from his home in New York City. And we talked about what is happening. And Walter, I recall Walter talking about his cynical reporter's mind. As you know, my mind is virulently cynical.
Absolutely.
And the question you have to ask yourself is why? Why is the Iraqi government permitting CNN to report what is happening? You know what I think, John Holloman?
What, Bernie?
I think that what you are experiencing through our reporting of what is happening is support. Support and opposition. There's no doubt in my mind but that if they wanted to pull the plug on us...
Oh, they could do it instantly. They control these wires that we're talking to our viewers on, absolutely.
They could do it instantly. Obviously, and this is a gross understatement, it chokes in my throat to even utter it. Saddam Hussein obviously is very busy right now. He's a man with a lot on his platter. But it seems to me that the government of Iraq is permitting us to report. They have indicated that they want us to report. They've even protected our people. Even Peter Arnett, when he was on the streets, he had troops around him while he reported. All I'm saying is that keep in the back of your mind the fact that we are able to come to you around the world and report what is happening as far as we can determine. And keep in mind, we don't know everything that's going on in Baghdad.
No.
There's no way we could possibly know. But that elements of the government of Saddam Hussein are allowing us to report out of here is significant. And frankly, I'm appreciative.
Well, I think, we can all appreciate the fact that we're being allowed, at least to a certain extent, to do our jobs. And Bernie, you'll be interested to know our engineer, Nick Robertson, was over at Iraqi television about, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago now, and he saw President Saddam Hussein walk into the television station. And we had heard that the president was going to record a message for the Iraqi people, and perhaps he was there to do that at the time that Nick saw him there.
The Iraqi people at this hour are very frightened. They have not heard from the president of their nation. They have heard clearly the reports of what is going on not only in Baghdad, but in Iraqi proper. You don't need word of mouth, ladies and gentlemen, at a time like this. It is clear that something major is happening. The ground is rumbling. And when human beings feel the ground rumbling, they know that something's up.
All right. Very short. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank both of you, Bernie and John. Let's go to Jonathan Mann. Jonathan?
Patrick, we're joined now in Israel by Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Netanyahu, thank you for joining us. Can you tell me, are Israel's armed forces still on that intense state of alert right now?
We are still in a state of preparation, both the military and, of course, the civilian rear. So far, nothing has happened. We're very happy that nothing has happened. But even though we're all watching, like the rest of the world, with appreciation, we're impressed with the early successes. We have our own experience with wars, and we know that it's, frankly, not over until it's over. So we're waiting.
Can you tell me, obviously, Jewish Israelis have to be very happy right now. There are also Arab Israelis and Palestinians who have different loyalties. The curfew, I imagine, is still imposed on the Palestinians in the occupied territories. What are you hearing about what's going on there now?
We had some minor disturbances. We don't have any major flare-ups. When you say curfew, you should remember that Israeli Jews, the citizens of Israel, are at home. They've been asked not to go out today either. So first of all, this is a measure of protection. But secondly, we've also said to the Intifada leadership that takes its cue from the PLO. The PLO, as you know, just announced that it would embark on a global campaign of terror against America. siding with Saddam Hussein. We've said, look, if you do that against us, we will take action. But other than that, responsible or quiet, peace-loving civilians have nothing to worry about.
Benjamin Netanyahu, this is Bernard Shaw, CNN in Baghdad, and I apologize if I sound a little scruffy around the edges, but I've been up for approaching 2 days now, and I apologize for that if I sound scruffy around the edges.
May I say, Bernie, that may I say before you ask me that you don't sound scruffy at all, and that the CNN crew is deserving a lot of admiration. Believe me, everybody's watching you and admiring what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate that on behalf of every woman and man here at CNN. I have to ask you, from what I know and what I've studied, what I've read, what I've heard, and what's been told me, I have to ask you this question. Based on what is happening, what do you see Saddam Hussein doing? He's trying to come up on television and address his people. What do you see Saddam Hussein doing now?
I don't know. I can only guess, because no one knows the mind of this man. No one knows how he allowed Iraq to be dragged into a confrontation with the greatest power on earth, with a sophisticated air force, with tremendous planes and pilots and electronics, both human and technological superiority of unquestionable character. How did he do it? We don't know. Why is he doing it now? We don't know. Perhaps he thinks he can be another Nasser, that is, turn defeat into victory. Maybe try to speak and incite the Arab masses. If he's betting on that, I think he's going to fail here as well.
Benjamin Netanyahu, Foreign Minister, Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel, I'm going to ask you this question, and it's going to put you on the spot. You know me, you and I have sat opposite each other having coffee, and we've had lunch, and we've had dinner, and we've sat opposite each other in the studio at CNN in Washington. I'm going to ask you this question, and please, I am not being maudlin. I'm trying to extract from you, for our viewers, a feeling. I don't know that, I'm sure a majority of our viewers do not know that you lost a brother, a member of your family, in the raid at Entebbe. And when you heard the United States informed your government 1 hour before this massive wave after wave bombing run went over us, I want to know, what do you think? What did you feel? Did you think of your brother? Did you think of Entebbe? What were your thoughts? And I ask you that question, sir. I totally respect you, but I ask you that question to try to get into your mind to see what was going on in the head of Benjamin Netanyahu.
I'm not going to discuss when we were notified, but when we did learn about the results, I can say very clearly that my first thought was relief, that the threat to Israel, the threat to my country, to my people, has been, if not removed, significantly reduced. And no, I was not thinking about my own personal history at that point, very frankly. I was thinking about the fact that we have had here moments of anxiety, and that in any war, one doesn't know in this country when you face the brink of disaster. We have fashioned here a capacity to defend ourselves against tremendous odds, and perhaps the world now understands what we've been facing. But one never knows, after all the preparations, after the superb intelligence that we have and the wonderful army that we have, one never knows if everything was done until it's actually tested. And when we saw the action, magnificent action, by the United States and its allies in this instance, then my first feeling was relief. It's all right. It's certainly not as bad as we thought. It may be even very good.
And may I apologize to you, Benjamin Netanyahu, for being so personal about You know me, and I have to ask you what you feel down there in the solar plexus, and if you were in any way offended, I apologize, but you and I have always looked each other in the eye and talked face to face. One last question before you go. More than, well, I won't say that, cancel that, but based on all the Israeli intelligence on Saddam Hussein, if you had to go by what you know, what would be your prediction of his behavior from this point on? And as I speak to you, keep in mind that these raids are continuing here in Baghdad.
I don't know. I simply cannot make an assessment. I think this man has defied all reasonable expectations. And if one deals in unreasonable expectations, then everything is possible. One would hope that he would draw at this stage the appropriate conclusion and bring an end to the suffering of his own people. They're the ones who, as you eloquently described, are paying the price. They would like to see an end to it. I think everybody would like to see an end to it. But whether he wants to see an end to it, that I don't know. I really don't understand him fully.
Deputy Foreign Minister of the Nation of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you very, very much. And Jonathan Mann, as we go to you, I have been thinking for the last 90 minutes or so about the Iraqi soldiers and the Iraqi military personnel who no doubt were in those command and control centers and anti-aircraft batteries that were struck by the warplanes that continue coming here and around Baghdad. Jonathan, to you.
Bernie, thanks very much. Take good care and stand by. We'll go now to Rick Salinger, standing by somewhere in eastern Saudi Arabia. Rick, what are the latest developments at your end?
Just a few moments ago, a pair of British Tornadoes went screaming off the runway into the sky from an airbase behind me, presumably towards Iraq and Kuwait. So the action at this hour certainly does continue. I spoke a moment ago with a captain in the U.S. Air Force, and I asked him if he could provide his feelings on this day when this big attack on Iraq, and he said actually they were mixed. On the one hand, he felt a feeling of regret that military action had to take place at all. But on the other hand, he had a feeling of satisfaction that the job they were doing was a good one, and he felt a sense of accomplishment. In fact, he told me, and we've seen planes doing victory rolls as they return to the bases where their mission began. In one mission so typical of many others that have taken place on this day, about 1:26 this morning from an air base somewhere in Saudi Arabia, pilots of the 35th Tactical Fighter Wing took off for their targets in Iraq. With their F-4 Wild Weasels accompanied by F-18s, A-6 Intruders, their targets, Iraqi surface-to-air missiles in Iraq. They flew into Iraq expecting to meet with some anti-aircraft fire. They were, but they hit their targets and they returned unscathed. Within a matter of just a few hours, they were back on the ground from where they began. Once the pilots returned, they spoke of a mission accomplished.
Well, the biggest thing I saw was one of the most fantastic fireworks demonstrations I've seen since 4th of July party years and years and years ago. This was tremendous. Baghdad was lit up like a Christmas tree. Looked like everything in downtown was, fireworks were going off, a lot of AAA, impacts on the ground. I think we hit there just about the time we're 60, 40 miles south is when they're pounding targets in Baghdad.
What was your target?
We were shooting the SAMs who were trying to shoot at the guys who were doing what they were doing downtown.
The SAM missile sites in town?
Around the perimeter of the town.
Around the perimeter of Baghdad.
That's correct.
And tell me again about the resistance that you ran into?
Lots of ground fire, lots of AAA, that's anti-aircraft artillery. And like I say, I think there was one SAM fired that I saw, but it was so far away and up through the smoke and haze, it was hard to make it out.
So nothing came close to you?
No, but that's the beauty of the system. We can stay far enough away that that's not going to be a problem for us, from the SAMs anyway. The bullets are the ones that scare me.
Now you're going back, after breakfast.
We got to go eat breakfast, look at the next mission, and get ready for the next go.
Did all the planes come back?
All 12 of mine came back.
His story, typical of many others that have spoken on this day. The action seems to be all pretty much one-sided. During the night, it appeared that the Iraqis might want to hit back. In fact, here in eastern Saudi Arabia, not once but twice, we heard the air raid sirens go off. Members of the civilian population headed for the shelters, gas masks in hand, but each time, a short time later, the all-clear was sounded. In fact, it turned out there were no Iraqi Scud missile attacks at all. So, all the military fighting seems to be going on in Iraq and Kuwait, not here in Saudi Arabia. John and Patrick?
Rick, what's your sense, what's the sense of the pilots you're talking to about how long this is going to last? It seems like they're doing very quick, easy work right now.
It does sound like it's quick and easy, and it does sound like it's going very well, but the one thing that they haven't spoken of is an end to it. In fact, long before this began, it was said that the air attacks would probably go on for some time, hoping that they might achieve a surrender through all the use of air power and might not have to use the ground forces where the casualties would be most likely to occur. So far, of course, that has not happened, and for the same token, we haven't heard of any talk of any end to this use of air power.
Rick Salinger in Saudi Arabia, thanks very much for that. We are going now to more unedited U.S. pool video that's coming in.
Did you have to go through many drills? Were you concerned about a possible retaliatory strike from Iraq?
No, like I say, we just come on duty, and all of a sudden we had a pilot, and boom, we was gone. I mean, there was no notice situation. No drills, no nothing. That's what we've been doing for years.
Well, how do you feel? You like these pilots? You running on empty?
Oh, no. We're fired up. We're ready to go. Just get it done and get it over with. Couldn't do it peacefully. Let's do it, I guess, the hard way, I guess they say.
All right, let's talk to you.
All right.
All right, what's your name?
My name is A1C Teal. I'm
A1, what's an A1?
Airman First Class.
Okay. And what does C stand for?
First Class.
What's your first name?
Robert.
Robert, and your last name is Teal?
Teal,
T-E-A-L. And you're from?
I'm from Virginia also.
That's the 71st Tactical Fighter Wing, right?
That's correct.
Squadron, all right. And what do you do?
I'm the assistant crew chief on this F-15 that just got launched out, and I do basically the same duties that the dedicated crew chief does.
All right, so tell me, how do you feel now that we're at war?
I'm pumped up. I felt that for a while I thought maybe the resolutions and stuff could work. Apparently they couldn't. I guess Mr. Hussein's going to have to learn the hard way.
Now, personally, I'm not asking you to speak for the Air Force or anyone else, but personally, do you think we should have waited?
I believe we waited as long as we could, did everything possible, gave it some last-minute tries. He didn't want to listen. He's going to have to be taught.
All right, tell me now, what is going to happen here?
Okay, we're going to bring the F-15 back in. We're going to turn it. We're going to get it shut down, check the jet out, make sure it's good to go, get the pilot out. If they want to send it back up, we'll get another pilot and launch him out again.
Okay, in your words, what's special about this particular F-15 that's returning?
It's mine. I take care of it.
Roger that.
Whatever the jet needs, it gets done. It's broke, I fix it.
Is there anything special about this, what this F-15 did last night?
It fired the first missile in first TAC fighter wing, and it also just showed that we're not going to stand around and let aggression go. It's got to be done.
All right, do you know anything, have any details about what has to be done as soon as this plane pulls into the revetment?
We'll bring him in, we'll turn him, we'll chalk the aircraft, we'll hook up and talk to the pilot. If he has anything to tell us, things that need to be done on the ground before we shut down, we'll do them. If not, we'll shut down. That'll be that.
You feel any jitters right now, any butterflies about what's coming up?
A lot.
Tell me about it.
I'm kind of jittery. There's still the chemical question in my mind. Apparently, the news said that he did fire some this morning, but they fell short of their targets. That was a little bit to help out my worries, but still there's a worry there. He's still got a big arsenal.
Okay, you heard the news that, on the news, that Iraq had fired some Scuds, but did you get any warning here yourself?
Yes, sir.
Were there sirens blaring?
We were just given over a radio that was carried around. There's enough radios for people to find out that there was a Scud alert.
And what did you do? I mean, how serious was this alert? What did you do after you heard it?
First reaction is to put your mask on, whether it's a real case scenario or not. So I put my mask on.
All right, okay, so why don't you, can you describe for me what happened when
Oh, okay, I was in the hooch, laying down. They came in, told me it was a scud alert. I had my mask laying next to my bed ready. I got up, put my mask on, waited for further instructions.
Well, that's about it. Okay, your name is?
Senior Airman Reed Logan.
And how do you spell your name?
L-O-G-A-N.
And you're with the 71st?
Yes, I'm with the 71st AMU 1st Tactical Fighter Wing.
All right.
And where are you from? I'm originally from New York, but I'm with Langley at Air Force Base, Virginia.
Why don't you tell me about what happened last night?
Well, I wasn't on shift at the time, but we got woke up when all the jets cranked, and like I said, we launched out, and we were all pumped right from the beginning. We had a lot of good adrenaline going, and we knew they were going for a reason. We weren't just a regular launch. We knew that they were going in there to get Iraq.
When did you first realize that the United States was going to war?
This morning when they launched. It wasn't, you know, like I said, it was a no nonsense thing. They just come out, pilot showed, we launched, and we knew they were going. It wasn't a scheduled launch, it was just go.
And how did you feel when all that was going on?
I had big butterflies, the adrenaline was really going. I was feeling really hyped, I was ready to go. I was ready for anything.
Any second thoughts about what we have just done?
No, I don't think so. We gave them, like I said, all the chances we could. We gave them chances right up even till after the 15th. We told him, we'll give you every chance you can. If you want to pull out, please. He wouldn't do it, so we had to do what we had to do.
If you could make a wish right now about what may or may not happen in the next few days, what would it be?
Well, I wish that Iraq would, you know, Mr. Hussein would realize that he doesn't have a chance here, and that he would just say, hey, we'll call it quits. I'll leave. You guys can, you know, take off.
Sergeant, do you know what kind of punch these planes can deliver? What can they do?
These aircraft that we have, the F-15s, are air-to-air. The E-models, which are here, they're more the air-to-ground. We would just fly a defensive role. We would go up with bombers and stuff like that and escort the bombers in, and you know, take out any air targets that were trying to get our bombers.
So you had strike aircraft here as well, the F-15Es?
No, just the C models.
Okay. First of all, what's your name and your rank?
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Don Klein, the 27th Tactical Fighter Squadron Commander.
Colonel, your name, can you spell your name for us, please?
K-L-I-N-E.
Colonel, first of all, tell us what happened last night.
Well, we got the execute order late yesterday afternoon, and we went through our mission planning and tried to get what sleep we could, and then got up early this morning, went and executed our mission.
And can you tell us something about what you did? Did you fly into Iraq? Did you escort a strike force? What did you do last night?
We flew into Iraq, and we did escort. We escorted a multinational force, and had the ability to go in there. I can't get into numbers of different type of aircraft or what targets were, anything like that. But we went in with a group of guys, and we got everybody out, and that was the most important thing to us. So our entire package got in and out, and we felt pretty happy about that.
Now, did you encounter any resistance?
We encountered a few airplanes coming up, nothing that really came close enough to us to deliver ordnance or anything. They were mainly coming up and going north. So they didn't come through to the south for us.
Colonel, why do you think that you didn't get any Iraqi planes coming up to intercept?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if probably we were just lucky at the time frame where we went. I think our president and all of our command just needs to be extremely congratulated for that. They did a great job at tactical deception. It worked out perfectly. We didn't even know when we were going or how we were going to go. So I think they did a tremendous thing with that. And that type of work only can save lives. And I'm just proud to, as Punch to be a part of this.
Now, did you see the attack itself? Did you see the strike on the target? Can you tell us anything about that, what you saw?
I saw the attack, and it was awesome. There were a lot of bombs going off.
What did it look like? What did it look to? Can you describe it?
It looks a lot like, you know, lights, flickering lights, like Christmas lights or something like that when the AAA's coming up. And then shortly after that, it looks like some big bomb fireworks or something like that going off. It was an awesome display. It truly was.
Now, did you hear from any of the pilots that you escorted, in the attack planes? Did they tell you anything about whether or not that they feel like they were on target?
No, we did not have the opportunity to discuss that. Frequencies are very busy, and that's something that you just don't even want to get out in the air. The big part is that the package is out. We get those kinds of words, and when they're coming outbound, then we feel pretty good. Nobody was down, and no beepers were going on guard or anything, so we felt pretty good that we got our package in and out.
Colonel, I'm assuming you guys are pretty well briefed on what you might encounter on your mission. Were you frightened at all when you were up in the air? Did you feel butterflies when you flew over Iraq?
You bet. You bet.
What did you feel?
It felt to me just like right before a big football game or something. I mean, you go to the bathroom 50, 60 times, and you can't do anything when you go. And you sit there and you try to go. You got the butterflies, you got the churn in your stomach. You don't know really what you're going to do. But it's just like a football game, too. Once you get airborne and you get the jet under you and you start feeling good, then you just start working your game plan. And it's just like a game there. First couple of plays of a big football game, you settle down, you feel a lot better.
When did you feel a little bit easier, like you were hitting your stride?
Well, probably on the way out. No, we felt good the entire time. When we first took off, and you can see we've got some weather here, and we had to find our tankers in the middle of the weather, and that wasn't a whole lot of fun. And once we found the tanker, and that worked out well, and got our gas, and then came over to our time to push into Iraq and everything, you start feeling pretty good and just start working it out at that point in time. For some reason, you lose your nervousness. When you look back at it, I don't know when I lost it. I just can't tell you because you're just up there doing your job.
Colonel, what was your scariest moment up there?
I don't know. Probably the takeoff, I guess. I don't know. Scariest moment up there, we really did not have that much resistance to really get frightened. I would say that's a hard one to answer.
Well, how about, weren't you thinking at all perhaps about the possibility of surface-to-air missiles and that sort of resistance as opposed to interceptors?
You bet. And that hurts us a lot for the F-15 fighter. But we got up there, we got lit up by a couple of SAMs, but if they launched at us, they didn't come our way. So I don't assume they launched at us.
What does that mean, you got lit up?
Just with our electronic gear, it just lets us know that somebody's looking at you. RWR, it's a warning receiver type of thing.
But as far as you know, there were no SAMs launched at you?
Not that we know of.
And what about anti-aircraft fire? Any?
We saw some anti-aircraft fire. It was off from us quite a distance, you know, 8 or 10 miles, so it wasn't to us, but you could see it coming up.
And you said the Iraqi planes that took off came up and then headed north.
It seemed to from where we were, and it just seemed that they were headed north, but there were other things going on, and they were probably being vectored towards other things. I don't know. I have no idea, really.
Were you surprised at how little resistance you met?
Yes, I really was. I was surprised with that, but I mean, it's a brand new day, and the day's just dawning, and the Iraqis don't fly a whole lot at night, and that was a great way to begin this. And they don't do a lot of night flying, so we're into a day, and we're going to have to be extremely vigilant and keep our guard up as we go along with this thing. It's going to continue until it's done, and we need to be smart about it because, you know, one good thing, you can't get overconfident. It's almost like scoring an early touchdown or something. You get overconfident, they can still beat you 38-6 or something.
How did you feel when you're finally pulling back in safely?
I felt pretty good. I felt good, really, when we crossed the fence coming out. That was a good feeling because we knew we were back inbound, and that's when you could sit back and relax.
A lot of people, analysts have been saying, you know, the armchair journals have been saying that our Air Force could establish air superiority within 48 hours, maybe even less. You see anything up there to change your mind?
No, I don't. I think that we have got a tremendous Air Force only because of what our people have bought for us, and it's really their Air Force, which you have to understand that. And we have the best equipment in the world right now, and it's working out very, very well, and we've got some good stuff, and we're just proud to be able to employ it.
And I guess one last question from us. You're going to have to fly a lot more today?
I don't know. I don't think I am. That's a question gets into, so I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't.
Can we shoot? We need to shoot some.
We're watching here, of course, U.S. pool tape, interviews with Air Force ground technicians and most recently a pilot who have been involved in the sorties against Iraqi positions, all of them saying that they're nervous about the war being underway. They're proud at the same time about the results and eager for the whole thing to be over. A surprising remark from the gentleman we just heard from, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Don Klein. He said they encountered Iraqi jets only once, and the jets were flying away from them, flying north. Very little ground resistance. More pictures here once again from Saudi Arabia, from the airfield where these interviews have been taking place. From all of them, what we've heard earlier, very little resistance, no casualties that any of these men could tell us about, and nervousness that went away when all of them encountered the tremendous success that the multinational force has been finding so far in this air battle, a very one-sided air battle. Some ground fire coming, no response from the Iraqi Air Force, and just the vision below them of Christmas lights as their bombs met their targets in Iraq. A very relaxed group, obviously surprised and noticeably happy to find that there has been so little resistance, that the job they've been sent to do has so far gone so well. All of them saying the job isn't over. Defense Department officials say the attack is continuing, but once again, all of them delighted that this far at least, they've had better success, much better success than they've expected.
All right, that was the pilot we just saw being interviewed. I'm told that we're waiting right now on this unedited pool tape for a couple of more pilots. We'll get a perspective from them on the missions that they ran over Baghdad or possibly over other targets in Iraq as they flew north. Shots here of the pool reporter. And
Patrick, we might just want to make clear here, we are seeing U.S. pool tape, and for that reason, we're seeing U.S. Air Force officers. Let's remind everyone that there were Saudi, Kuwaiti, and British Air Force officers and pilots involved in these sorties as well. And we should eventually be getting pictures and interviews and information about all of them, too.
How about one smile for just a minute? I like I was taking a photograph because I am going to take a freeze frame of it and then shoot the full right back. Okay. Cheese. One.
All right, we will take the opportunity then to, as we're seeing the group shot here, to send back home of the pilots. Mikhail Gorbachev, we're looking forward to, among many more things to come as this coverage of the war in the Persian Gulf continues. We're looking forward to, at 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, an address by Mikhail Gorbachev. That will be coming up very shortly, if it shows up when it is supposed to.
And where are you from?
Oklahoma.
Where in Oklahoma? A lot of guys from Oklahoma working with NBC.
Okay. Osage County.
Osage County. Senior correspondent above me is from Paco City.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's on the border of Osage
your
County.
rank again?
Captain.
All right, Dave, got down for
That's right.
Captain, tell me, what was your scariest moment last night?
It was pretty exciting as we crossed the border and we watched the ground fire coming up from Kuwait. We knew that we were out of their engagement envelopes, but nonetheless, watching the airbursts below us was sobering, nonetheless.
What did it look like?
Exactly like the movies, to be real honest. The ground fire of the artillery coming up and the airburst below us was exciting.
Wasn't that frightening as opposed to exciting?
Well, the fact that we're engaged in the mission and we're very much wrapped up with what we're doing with our jet, traveling right at the speed of sound. And that initially we watched the ground fire come up and the first response was, gee, that's neat. And then the second response is, it's aimed at me. And then it became very realistic. And that's when the maneuvers and the chaff clouds were put out to protect ourselves.
Did you have to fire any of your missiles last night? What happened?
We had no adversaries that ever came to engage us. Those that did get airborne for preservation went north out of our way.
Oh, do you think that they hightailed it north because they just didn't want to mix it up with you guys?
I think it was a preservation move. If they stayed on the ground, they would have been bombed, and had they flown in our direction, they would have been shot down. So it was their best move to go north.
What about, did we get that last comment? Let me ask you that one more time because we missed that on the audio. Why do you think these Iraqi planes hightailed it north?
It was a preservation move. Had they stayed on the ground, they would have been bombed. And had they come southbound into our force-ship, they would have been shot down.
And how's it feel now that you're back?
Oh, it's exciting to have one under my belt. Same adrenaline that a young hunter has on his first hunt or a young athlete has after his first football game. It's now behind us, and we're ready to press on with the mission.
What did you feel when you first got your orders?
Mixed emotion, a little apprehension, a little fear, a lot of excitement. None of us are so, we have an element of discipline about us that we don't necessarily want to go out and wreak a lot of destruction, but yet we're trained for thousands of hours or many years of combat training to go out and do exactly what we did tonight.
Anyone else? How about?
Step in there, Rod.
Go ahead, John.
Was your first combat?
All right.
Right there?
Right. Okay, what's your name?
John Doucette, Captain.
Captain, how do you spell your last name?
D-O-U-C-E-T-T-E.
C-E-T-T-E. And what part of the state you from, Captain?
Virginia.
Keep it up on.
Yeah,
one of these. You know, Big City Bob. You're from Oklahoma originally.
Yes, sir.
Whereabouts in Oklahoma?
Lawton, Oklahoma.
Yeah, guys back in Peacock love this. Why don't you tell me, can you describe as well, give me your description about what you saw last night once the attack commenced on your target? What did it look like?
It was, to look down below, there was sort of an undercast, so the light that came up was magnified by the undercast. Just to kind of echo Captain Drummond's sentiment about the AAA that came up, you could see that come up and the burst. By the same token, you could see the bomb burst underneath the undercast, and it kind of rippled underneath. To see those two actions going on at the same time was, you knew that one was aimed at you, and you knew the other was aimed at them, and yet it was all the same type of light rippling through the sky. It was really kind of a transition between the two forces. Kind of neat.
But what did you feel when you saw that coming at you?
Again, I have to echo Captain Drummond's sentiment. You stand there, you sit there, and you watch this stuff come up, and at some point you become comfortable almost with what you're doing because you're in your cockpit, and then you realize that this isn't the time to become comfortable with what you're doing because you've got stuff being aimed at you. And it kind of jogs you back into reality, and you go, that is aimed for me. I need to be looking at it a little bit better. So it kind of brings you back into reality real quick.
How did you feel when you got through with the mission?
Well, you're on such an adrenaline high. Prior to the mission, there really wasn't much time for rest, and you probably couldn't have rested even if you wanted to. You're just so high. Going through the mission, you're running on adrenaline, basically. Coming off that mission, you're just flooded with an emotion of a sense of relief, a sense of, I've done it, first time's over with. It's kind of like,
What altitude generally they come in at all?
They may not discuss anything along that line. Tactics, rules, engagement, nothing like that.
I asked you what your most anxious moment was,
Yeah, pretty much. It was, you did.
When did you breathe your first sigh of relief?
It truly wasn't until I was back down on the ground. The mission isn't over until it's over. And until you come back down on the ground and you go through your debrief, the mission is still going on. So until you get your feet back firmly on the ground, that's the point when you can go, okay, I'm done.
You guys are obviously pumped up with adrenaline. Is there any point where you, like reality sets in when maybe the adrenaline kind of recedes a bit, and then you realize, my God, I'm in some real danger here?
It didn't happen on this mission. Ask me in another few missions, and I may have a different answer for you, but on this particular mission, there was no lack of adrenaline. There was no lack of impetus to make it all work out right and get back home. I don't think I'll ever become comfortable with the feeling of the fact that there's a possibility of endangering one's life, but this particular mission, I did not. I repeat, did not run out of adrenaline. I was gung-ho the whole way.
Any regrets? Any second thoughts about what?
I'm back on the ground. I've got no regrets. It went perfect.
Are you looking forward to doing it again?
Absolutely.
Now, can we get just a few?
On the blue turning again. We need the commander over here. He's supposed to be get over here. Sir, would you like to say a few words to your boys?
Hey, perhaps read some of that comm. Get on to me for talking so much. Pushing that local.
It's team sport, sir. It's team sport.
We've just seen some interviews and now some pictures, the men and machines of the 1st Tactical Fighter Wing that's come back from sorties over Iraqi positions. Men who are very surprised by the little resistance that they met, very delighted to have made it back with no casualties reported. More pictures there as the jets continue moving through the airfield. One of the airmen had an intriguing thought about why they met so little resistance. He suggested to the correspondent who interviewed him that if the Iraqi jets had stayed on the ground, they would have been bombed by the multinational force. If they'd gone into the skies to meet the multinational force, they would have been shot down. Instead, it appears they fled north so that they could come back and fight another day. This is just one airman's speculation, of course, but an interesting idea to explain a little bit about why they met so little resistance in the air and only from ground positions. Here we're seeing more of the airbase somewhere in eastern Saudi Arabia. Defense Department regulations prohibit us telling you more about where the airfield is located.
And you also pointed out, or I think wanted to point out, Jonathan, the AAA they keep referring to.
That's right. There's a lot of terminology here that'll be unfamiliar to us and to a lot of our viewers anyway. The AAA is anti-aircraft artillery. Those are the 3 A's the pilots are talking about. So far, they've been saying that they have been encountering some resistance from the AAAs, but not very much.
Lots of talk about jitters, one of them characterizing it as something that you might experience right before a big football game. He says he feels a lot better, though, and that all of them expressing the same sentiment, that they're very happy to be back on the ground, but that the mission has gone extremely well. And some very interesting descriptions from the air of what they saw as the AAA was coming up and as the bombs were bursting below and in the air above the city of Baghdad.
Well, Patrick, if we're going to compare it to a football game, these men are really speaking and behaving very much like it's just half-time. They're very satisfied with the way things have gone, relieved that they've come back, but they're very conscious, and you can see it in their faces, that it's not over yet.
While we watch one of the jets taking off, we should point out right now we are looking for, I don't think we see as yet though, a taped message from Mikhail Gorbachev. We're looking for it. We don't see it as yet. We also have correspondence that we'll be going to shortly, but we want to stay with our unedited U.S. pool tape as we watch these, obviously taking off in daylight, a foggy day, but taking off on what would probably have been the second mission that we heard John Holloman and Bernard Shaw describing from the 14th floor where their location was in Baghdad. All right, we want to go now to an interesting bit of information for you. Saddam Hussein taped, apparently, a message that was carried on Radio Baghdad, Iraq's official news agency, carrying Saddam Hussein's letter to the Iraqi people, announcing the outbreak of war. Saddam Hussein describing the outbreak of hostilities as the, and we quote now, mother of all battles. Made no mention, though, of the success or otherwise of the Allied bombing runs against military and strategic targets within Iraq or in Kuwait. The letter that was read, at midnight, the treacherous have deceived, he said. The partner of evil, Bush, committed the great confrontation in the mother of all battles. He said that the Iraqis were expecting the Allied assault. The Iraqi leader